For this salmon and bacon pinwheel, I'm going to need you to do as I say and not as I do. First off, let's start with at least an 8-ounce skinless salmon fillet, not the 6-ounce fillet that I have here. Grab your sharpest knife and begin to split it in half so that we have a nice even thin piece of fish. Just be careful not to cut all the way through it. Next up, let's get about 4 to 5 pieces of some normal cut bacon. Don't use super thick cut bacon like I have here. It took a bit too long for my liking to get this bacon cooked thoroughly, and it dried out the salmon. Simply lay the bacon on top of the salmon to cover it entirely, but leaving about 1 inch at the end to be able to completely seal when we roll it up. Speaking of rolling, start tightly rolling this up towards the end of the salmon that you left exposed. You can use butcher twine to wrap this even tighter, but I don't think it's absolutely necessary. Once it's wrapped, split it in half, and you'll be left with some nice looking little fish swirls. Season this up with some salt and pepper before placing it onto a baking sheet that's lined with parchment paper. Put it into an oven that's been preheated to 375 degrees Fahrenheit for about 8 to 10 minutes or until it looks a bit like this. I had to cook my thick ass bacon much longer, but the 8 to 10 minutes should be good if you follow the written directions. And they're beautiful, like a little fish and pork roes. Squeeze over a little lemon and enjoy the fruits, fish, of our labor. We do family meal at the restaurant on Friday, and it was my turn to make something. This one is definitely keto, and the portion size is meant for 20 people. If that's not your style, I'll understand if you click off the video. But to start, we're going to need 1 yellow onion that's been roughly chopped. Throw that into the bottom of a pan and pull out some of that handy candy, aka grape tomatoes. We're going to need about 5 pounds worth. On top of that, we're going to use just a little garlic, probably 30 to 35 cloves. Season this up with your favorite Italian herb blend or herbs de Provence. I went with about 3 tablespoons here. You can dose it up if you think it's necessary. Next up is going to be 1-ish tablespoon of black pepper, then 2 teaspoons of chili flakes, about 2 tablespoons of salt, and for the braising liquid, I went with about 750 milliliters of Cabernet Sauvignon. You can use any dry red wine you want here, or you can just stick with chicken stock. Hell, even a nice Chardonnay would be good here. Finish that up with 6 cups of chicken stock and give everything a nice mix. For the star of the show, I'm going to be using 2 pork butts. I wanted more surface area in my braising liquid, so I cut it into smaller pieces. Place it into the mix and then into an oven that's set to 350 degrees Fahrenheit for about an hour to get an initial roasting of the pork and to get that liquid hot. After that hour, cover tightly with parchment paper and foil. This will help to retain the heat and to braise all of those veggies and pork. Place it back into the oven at 275 degrees Fahrenheit for 5 hours or so, or until the pork is just about fall apart tender. Unwrap it and place it back into your oven at 375 degrees Fahrenheit to get everything on top deeply roasted. We're just developing flavor here. Once that's done, remove it and let it rest for about 30 minutes, just so that it's a bit easier to work with. The bone from the pork butt should come out clean, and now we're ready to separate the pork from the braising liquid, and then we want to separate the veggies from the liquid. These veggies will be our sauce, but the braising liquid is still good and can be drank like a nice Italian bone broth, so don't toss it. Now that everything is separated, get all of your veggies into a blender and blend until smooth. Give it a taste for salt and season as needed. And it should look like this. Now we could focus on the pork by getting it all broken up into smaller pieces. And I'm going to be using a potato masher to get it nice and shredded. Place the pork back into your pan and pour over all of the sauce. If it's looking a little dry, add some of your braising liquid to add moisture. Mix everything well, and that's it. This is great on its own, but if you're into spaghetti squash, it'd be great over that as well.